I have 5 suggestions of ways to quilt your Stitching Cosmos quilt. Hi, I'm Sarah from sewingmastery.com, and we do a ton of online courses. And one of our most popular ones to help master your sewing machine and all of its decorative stitches and features and functions is our Stitching Cosmos online course. So let's explore options, whether you are thinking about enrolling in this class or you're a current student just about finishing up all your lessons. I know you've done so much work learning all the different techniques and exploring which accessory feet are right for you. But people get to the end and then they go, oh, I've got to quilt this. So if you are going to put all the blocks together, which by the way, if you are not a quilter, which we have many students who are more garment sewers or home dec artists, they're taking this course to master techniques to kind of implement into other mediums than just a quilt. So whether you are a sewer or a quilter or just somebody who wants to master the beautiful machine that you have purchased and you don't want to miss a beat, this course is designed to help you. So let's say you are not a master machine quilter. Where should you start? So this particular quilt that I'm going to show you is actually student blocks from one of our very first in-person class that we taught. And I collected their blocks that they were going to throw away, but these were like blocks from day one. And so this is kind of a souvenir quilt for me. And what I did was I just went ahead, put them all together, and then did a crosshatch quilting. I wanted to prove that it's okay to quilt through decorative stitches and techniques. Now, I know there's going to be maybe some blocks where you might have the ruffle or something that's kind of sticking out. Just remember you can stitch up to that point and kind of like stop, hop over it. So you're not like just stitching it down so it doesn't look good. There are some times where you would want to do that on projects that you are doing just continuous line stitching. So that is one way. Now, a lot of us have a walking foot or you have a dual feed and it's a built-in option. That is exactly what you're doing. Now, before I move on to our other suggestions, I want to show you that I sewed the blocks together and I layered it with the batting in the back. I quilted this direction, then I quilted the other direction, and then I added the circles that you see on this quilt. So they're from our circular sewing attachment lesson, and that is always a fun way to add some extra areas of interest or cover up things that you might not want to show. We have used it for that. But it is stitched down with the blind applique, and you can actually see the circles through the batting and through the back. So meaning the stitching that I used, the blind applique stitch, to stitch them down. So it actually became kind of part of the fun look on the back of the quilt. So just because you have stitched straight lines doesn't mean that you're done. You could always go back and add some more. So those of you who are kind of in the beginning stages of learning machine quilting, the second thing that we're going to recommend are actually some Craftsy online courses. Now we're going to put links below, and there's some amazing ones that still use your walking foot or built-in dual feed feature, but get a little bit more exotic than just cross-hatching, okay? So these 3 courses that you're seeing here are ones that I personally have taken, and they are full of information that is so amazing. I never thought of looking at quilting this same way with just using a walking foot, with your feed dogs up, and just taking the time to go around everything. So the links below are links that we will get credit for your purchase from Craftsy, and you can purchase those courses 2 ways. Number 1, you can purchase them outright and own them for life, meaning you get to keep them. Kind of like buying a movie back in the day when we used to do that. All right, the second one is a subscription option, which is kind of nice because then you get a subscription and all the courses on Craftsy's website are open for you. So not just the quilting classes that we're recommending, but you could hop over and find my courses, the t-shirt quilt class and a serger class. And then of course, all the other Craftsy classes, from cooking to gardening to other types of crafting. So that is kind of a nice option to do, is the subscription, and then you can turn it off when you are done watching. But it's also a great deal. But if you want to keep the course, I would recommend buying it. So again, those links are below to some of my favorites that you can check out. Now, a lot of the quilts that you see in the course are my quilts that when I have finished, I free motion quilt. And I am one to do a sit-down quilting option, so I am not a long armor. That's just one thing that I have not done. It's not that, okay, I just don't find joy in doing it, but I do find joy in sitting down and moving the quilt and free motion quilting it at a sit-down machine, whether that's the free motion foot on my sewing machine or a sit-down option like the Bernina Q20, which is a sit-down quilting machine with stitch regulation, which I absolutely love. Okay, that is what I do. But there was a time for me to learn free motion quilting. I actually started with Leah Day's 365-day free motion quilting designs. And I'll put a link to the book and also to all her free videos of learning how to free motion quilt. And it's kind of like you do like one a day, like kind of like a devotion type thing, and you build up those skills. So if you are thinking of doing free motion quilting but have never done free motion quilting, here's my tip. Don't use your Stitching Cosmos quilt as your first quilt that you're going to free motion quilt. I probably think that it's not going to be your greatest work until you have practiced and kind of learned some of the general functions of getting good looking free motion quilting. Okay, so I spent a while mastering free motion quilting so that when I started to do these courses and I had these beautiful quilts to quilt, I was able to sit down and take everything that I've learned and incorporate it and quilt my quilts. So again, there's some wonderful options for free motion quilting. Plus, Craftsy has a huge option of free motion quilting classes as well. So if you're hopping into that direction, again, I'll put some links to some of my favorites. Leah Day also has free motion quilting classes. So does Angela Walters, which leads me into one of our next options for quilting your Stitching Cosmos quilt. And that is to do it using ruler work. So kind of a deviation from free motion quilting. Ruler work is an opportunity that kind of changes your perspective and you get a little bit more perfection for whether you're doing straight lines or curves or circles or all the different things that you can do. So that is another option for you. And there's lots of places, even So Steady website has a whole curriculum because they sell the rulers that you often will be using. And then they have a whole curriculum too. So once again, there's going to be lots of links below that you can check out and see which one is right for you. And the last option is to have a long armor quilt your quilt top for you. And I know that might not be what you had planned to do, but I bet that they will do an amazing job and just bring all those blocks and techniques to life. So don't X out this option. It is a great way to have a beautiful piece done. So one option, and I have had it done on this quilt, I had a long arm quilter quilt an all over design over this student block quilt, another souvenir quilt that I absolutely love. And all those circles again go over all the stitches, and it's absolutely one I love. It actually hangs in our event center, and every time I look at it, it makes me happy. Long armors are also able to do custom quilting, so actually adding additional detail to each block if that is something that you would like to do. Usually that costs a little bit more, and not all long armors do custom quilting, so just check out to see what that option is. The one thing I will advise, now if you have already sewn on some of those buttons or extra doodads that might get in the way of their quilting machine, I would actually say it's worth removing them because they're gonna have to remove them anyway just so the machine doesn't catch on them. And on the few places where you have like the ruffle or the gathering, you can actually glue that down so again their foot doesn't come across and kind of flip it over because they're going to have to stop take out those stitches, flip it back, and you can use some fabric glue in that area to hold it all down. So just depending if they're doing an all-over quilting design, if they're doing custom, they'll be able to kind of go around that area and not stitch that little extra flap down. If it doesn't matter that it's stitched down, that's okay too, but you decide what is best for you. So these 5 options are what I would suggest taking time to think about which one would you like to have on your Stitching Cosmos quilt. And we love pictures, so once you get it quilted, whether you have somebody else do it or you do it yourself, share some of those pictures in some of the Facebook Stitching Cosmos online groups. We can't wait to see your finished quilt. If you're watching this video and you're not already enrolled, we'll put some links below where you can actually watch a handful of videos for free to see if this course would be right for you.